I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it formed, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good evening. Good evening and welcome to our virtual forum for Port Washington Board of Education candidates. My name is Regina Gouvenier, and I am the president of the League of Women Voters of Port Washington-Manhasset. As you know, our local league, as well as the New York State League and the National League, are nonpartisan. We never support or oppose any political party or candidate. Our mission is to engage you, the voters, by giving all candidates for a given office a public space to answer your questions in a structured way while maintaining civil discourse. Before we begin, I want to thank all the members of our league who have teamed up to make these forums happen. Most important to our league is Judy Temkin-Jacobson, President of Voter Services. Judy's efforts and leadership make our Voter Services team what they are. Many of you have submitted questions through the advertised Bitly, which will remain open during tonight's forum. If you have not yet submitted a question, you may do so now. Our experienced vetters for the evening are Fran Furtado and Julie Meir. As in in-person forums, they will select questions to forward to our moderator as the forum progresses. Marie Bellon is the timer for this evening. Our league encourages new members to take leadership roles. We often describe one piece of our mission as making democracy work. This includes all our voter services work, letting candidates speak directly to voters on issues that matter through forums like this and through a variety of publications. It includes educating voters and advocating with legislators on issues involving voting and elections, but also on redistricting, natural resources, and healthcare. We only take positions on issues after studying them extensively. We hope you'll consider joining the league, which you can do on our website, LWV of PWM.org. Remember, the league is not for women only. I'll now turn the candidate forum over to Judy Esterquist, who will serve as our moderator for this evening. Judy is not from Port Washington and is not eligible to vote in this election, as our own rules require. She will now read our rules and procedures. We will then move on to opening statements and questions from the audience. I have asked candidates to leave their cameras off until Judy asks them to turn on cameras just before the opening statement. Thank you. Judy?
Thank you, Regina, and good evening to everyone. Welcome to the League of Women Voters Candidates Forum for the Port Washington Board of Education. As Regina noted, my name is Judy Esterquist, and I'll be your moderator. I live in Manhasset, and I do not vote in Port Washington. I want to emphasize that the League does not support or oppose any parties or candidates. I'll begin by reading the rules for the forum that all candidates have agreed to. Candidates, please keep your cameras off and stay muted until I ask you to turn them at the beginning of opening statements. Here are the rules that they've agreed to. The moderator will be a member of the League of Women Voters from outside the district. I'm outside. Candidates' opening statements will be given in alphabetical order. The same order will be for opening and closing statements. Each candidate will be allowed 3 minutes for an opening statement. If there are many candidates, the moderator may limit the opening statements to 2 minutes. We're going to keep it at 3 minutes. After all candidates have spoken, the moderator will open the meeting with questions from the audience submitted electronically before and/or during the forum. Electronic addresses for questions will be publicized with the forum, and they were available on the League website. The moderator will be the arbiter of whether questions are appropriate, repetitive, or abusive. Each candidate will be given 1.5 minutes to answer each question. At the moderator's discretion, the time for response may be reduced as long as it is the same for everyone. There will be no rebuttal. Questions may be addressed to a specific candidate or to candidates in general, although all candidates will be given an opportunity to answer any question addressed to a specific individual. The moderator will attempt to rotate the order of responses for each question. Marie will be our timekeeper. Would you please turn on your camera and show the signs? Rule 8. A League member will act as timekeeper. 1.5 minutes from the end of any given time period, the timekeeper will warn the speaker by a prearranged signal. When the time is up, the speaker will be allowed to finish the sentence. Repeatedly speaking past the deadline may result in a candidate being muted. Candidates will have 2 minutes for a closing statement. And since the purpose of the meeting is to determine the candidate's views, no substitute speaker will be allowed to appear should a candidate be unable to attend. No written or recorded statement may be provided in lieu of active participation by a candidate, and forums require 2 or more candidates to be present for each seat. The use of props, charts, or visuals and the display of campaign literature is prohibited. In accordance with League policy, audio or video recording by authorized members of the media will be permitted only if agreed to by all candidates present. The League maintains the right to record the forum and publish it on League-controlled electronic pages. No other recording will be allowed. No partial transcripts or recording may be published without written permission from the Leagues. Candidates, would you all please turn on your cameras? We will begin with Emily Bays. So Ms. Bays, could you unmute yourself and begin your opening statement?
Thank you. Good evening, and thank you to the League of Women Voters for once again hosting this forum and allowing us the opportunity to speak to the community. And thank you to all of you here tonight, albeit virtually. As stated, my name is Emily Bays, and I am running for re-election for the Port Washington Board of Education. A little about myself. I was born in a town outside of Athens, Greece, and emigrated to this country with my parents and sister when I was 4 years old. I became the first in my family to speak English and the first in my family to graduate from college. I have lived in Port Washington since 1995, and my husband and I are proud parents of 2 Port graduates. My daughter graduated from Boston University in 2015, and my son from Cornell University in 2019. My daughter, now married and working for Raytheon Technologies, is a Port homeowner herself, and my son is in law school living in New York City, but we're going to get him to move back to Port Washington soon. I've served in many Port leadership roles as a parent within the school district prior to being elected to the Board of Education in 2016. While on the board, I have served on all its committees and chaired some as well. This past year, I have served as the Board of Education President. I have spearheaded successful advocacy with our state and federal legislators on behalf of our school district, and have been fiscally responsible in structuring and adopting budgets within or below the tax cap. This past year, under my leadership, our school board's engagement and accessibility has been restructured. I've also assisted in the development and implementation of the school district's vision and mission and portrait of a graduate, and have been instrumental in facilitating the process through which they are incorporated into our district goals and our budget. I am proud to have helped lead our district back on a path towards success after being sidetracked by a couple of years, and it's this work that I hope to continue for another term. This year has been a great beginning. I believe my experience and objective voice for all can continue to be an asset to our school board, and hope the voters offer me the opportunity to serve another term. I look forward to your questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And next is Ms. Brooks.
Hello, thank you to the League for hosting this event and inviting me to participate, and to everyone listening in. I'm Deborah Brooks and I am seeking re-election. It's been an honor to serve during this most challenging time. My husband John and I have lived in Port almost 20 years. Our only child has attended Port School since kindergarten at Daly and is now a Schreiber Senior. I believe a board member must work respectfully with fellow board members and district staff, be well informed, and listen to the community, because the board is responsible for shaping the district's mission and vision and goals, and for ensuring accountability. My philosophy continues to be about delivering whole child educational excellence to every student via a fiscally responsible budget. I am seeking re-election because I believe and hope my philosophy and temperament aligns with the educational needs of our children and the fiscal concerns of our community. As my colleagues know, I come to meetings highly prepared. I'm not afraid to address difficult issues head on, even when it's not what some people might want to hear, because I don't play games and you deserve to know where I stand. During the 2020 lockdown, I believed our students needed daily interaction with their teachers. I worked to support our students and constantly asked if staff had what they needed to deliver instruction. That summer, I was adamant that school reopen in September. Since then, you could rightfully say I've been laser focused on student and staff health. This is not only because I want students and staff to be healthy, but because I understand that sick and quarantined students lose the important benefit of in-person instruction and social interaction with fellow students. As policy chair for the past 2 years, I have had ambitious goals. I oversaw the revision of our 1994 homework policy and the creation of a grading policy, and worked productively with district administration. As a member of the legislative task force, I advocated for Port to get its fair share of state aid and pandemic relief, and advocated for timely guidance from DOH. In addition, I happily volunteered to represent our board at 2 NISBA annual business meetings. I'm a fiscal conservative and I view the budget through that lens. I speak up when I believe proposed spending is out of line. Recall my consternation last year over $250,000 for desk shields, believing they soon would be unnecessary, as in fact happened. I will continue to use common sense to ensure sound fiscal planning and the sustainability of our limited resources while ensuring our children receive an outstanding education. When I was elected, I hoped to improve the district's onboarding process for parents new to the district, increase communication and transparency with the community, and increase vocational opportunities for Schreiber students. I'm happy to see these goals coming to fruition. Port is an amazing district, but there is yet work to be done.
Thank you.
May I continue or shall I stop?
Stop, that's fine. Add it to your closing. Mr. Tretola.
You could have gave her an extra 30 seconds. I would have liked to listen. I'm used to
That's
it.
okay. You're being timed.
Hi. Okay, so my name is Mike Tretola. I'm happy. I thank the league for having me. First off, my wife Rosalia and I moved here 20 years ago. I have a daughter who's 9 years old who has special needs, as they call it ASD, or as Port Washington labels her OHI, other health impaired. I got involved with my daughter's education when she first came here. She originally attended Mill Neck Manor for kids with special needs. She then went over to Guggenheim, and the reason why I started to pay even more attention to what was going on is my daughter was in a 12-1-1 class, and we never had an inclusion program. So as I called around, although I'm new and I'm not a traditional candidate, I have several friends of mine who are superintendents of districts, 4 friends of mine who are presidents of districts on Long Island. And when I first explained to them how unhappy I was, they said, well, why don't you put your daughter in an inclusion program? So as I looked into that, I realized we didn't have one, and then found out that one of the only districts that did not have one. So as I continued to push and saw a very unhappy child, it made me get more and more aggressive into being able to advocate for kids with special needs. So where am I and why am I doing this now? First off, I probably am busy 7 in the morning. I work at 10 o'clock at night, but I'm willing to put things on hold when it comes to advocate for children. What I'm looking to do is I'm looking to sit there and say, hey, my daughter right now has special needs. She eventually will get to the middle, and maybe one day she will be gifted. There is 3 sides. There are the special needs children who have been overlooked, children with IEPs. There is the middle, which is overlooked. And then there's the gifted and talented who obviously have their programs as well. What I'm looking to do is I'm looking to bridge the gap. That's where my focus is going to be. I bring 25 years of Wall Street experience. I am a critical thinker. I am a decision maker, and I am not afraid to speak my mind. I'd like to start with the questions, and enough about me.
Thank you. So we've now heard from the candidates. The first question is, what do you see as the primary work of the Board of Education, and what kind of influence can you have? Ms. Bays, can you go first?
Sure, thank you. The primary work of the Board of Education is to set the overall 30,000-foot view and mission and vision of the school district. Our job is to work with the superintendent in getting the how. So the Board of Education's role is the what. We are the what, and the superintendent and the administrators, teachers are the how. That is what I see as our view. And that is what I believe we continue to have to be able to stay towards.
Thank you. Ms. Brooks.
I agree with Ms. Bays. I would add to that we set policy. We are responsible for the accountability of the one employee we supervise, who is the superintendent. And of course, we need to put up a budget. The board is also responsible for the overall health of the students and the staff. The buck stops with us. So ultimately, we need to be responsible for the infrastructure in the district, the health and well-being of the students, in addition to delivering education, the health and well-being of the staff. And so the global view is the accountability issue, really, that the buck stops with us. I think there are some smaller issues that we could discuss, but the main ones are hiring the superintendent, evaluating the superintendent, setting the mission and vision and goals, setting board policy, and putting up a responsible budget.
Thank you. Mr. Tretola.
Governance, finance, policy. The board's job is to oversee the superintendent, not micromanage him. What I think we should do is we set the policy, and then I want to see the superintendent's roadmap, and then I want to see him execute. That's their job. I like to let the administrators do what they're supposed to do and do what they are paid to do. We do not bring the superintendent in here, pay him what we pay him, and then micromanage and stay on top of what they do. Our job as a board is to oversee, not run a school district. It's not my job to write the curriculum. It's my job to approve the curriculum. And I'll leave it as simple so we can continue on with the questions.
Thank you. Next question. In our district, the perception is that most focus is placed on student achievement in the accelerated advanced level, as well as the students who need extra help to stay on grade level. The children who are in the middle seem to get lost. For the incumbents, what have you done as a Board of Education trustee to address the concern that the average achieving students are being given short shrift by the Port Washington district? And for the challenger, what would you do to make it better? Ms. Brooks.
I would like to think that the district and the teachers are dedicated to delivering the best education possible to all of the students. If there are students who are not getting what they need, I would suggest to the parents, if that is happening, that they follow the chain of command to the teachers to make sure the issue is resolved at the place closest to the problem. If that doesn't satisfy the parents, if the children still are not being served, then the chain of command is up through the principal, eventually through administration, the superintendent, and then to the board. So that would be on a granular level by student. As an overall picture, one of the things that the board has done this year is to put into the budget opportunities for students in the middle or students who maybe aren't college bound or aren't in the accelerated classes, maybe they are, to go into career and technical training next year to increase the BOCES opportunities for the district. And hopefully that is something that will help those students. But I always say if a student needs supports, the parents need to start first at the building level and with the teachers to make sure that they are getting those supports. And that's what I would do with my child, regardless of where my child was.
Thank you. Mr. Tretola.
Okay, so like I mentioned, you're going to have a big wide range because when I first started out, my main focus was children with special needs because I have a daughter with special needs. And then as I started to reach out and speak to the parents, I started to realize that there is a very, very wide gap. So my question as a challenger, what is the board doing to monitor the progress of these children? What is actually going on in between? I'm not there to know. It's the educators that are reporting back. Why when a student is in high school, what's happening to that child in high school when he goes to his class and his class is canceled and he sees a sign on the door? What is the middle range student? Maybe the gifted and talented child goes and is able to study. What does the middle person do? Do they walk around for an hour and 10 minutes? Do they talk to their friends? So I need to find out what the program is for that middle child and how he's being assessed or she's being assessed. Until I get that answer, it's very hard for me to give what we can do for them because I don't know as the challenger. I'm not involved in the day-to-day operations of the school district.
Ms. Bays. Thank you.
So I will add to what Ms. Brooks said that with regards to the vision and mission and the portrait of a graduate. And I think that perception may have been in the past that the school district was only focused on the upper section or the lower, if you would call that. But this past year specifically, and that we started this process and had to be kind of stalled because of COVID. The school district did for the first time really put together a committee that community members that focused on creating a vision and a mission, which then turned into a portrait of a graduate, which is a whole child education process. And it is aimed at educating children and giving them a well-rounded and equitable educational experience. It is focused in this year's budget more so than other times. And it has been focused in our meetings, our board meetings throughout the year. Again, everything being focused on how is our portrait of a graduate being put into play in our school district. We are, by the way, addressing some of the concerns that Mr. Tretola brought up earlier. And that is a focus that the Board of Education is looking at going forward.
Thank you. Next question. The mask mandate was very contentious and a hard-fought issue from both those who wanted the mandate to stay in place and those who did not. Parental choice was a big part of the argument for those who wanted the mandate to end. How do you see parental choice influencing your position on the mask mandate, as well as other important issues affecting our children, including requiring the COVID vaccine, the HPV vaccine, state testing, etc.? And we will begin with Mr. Tretola.
Okay, you may have to repeat the question. There was a lot of parts, but the first part I will answer. Every child is different. I am someone who was personally affected by COVID-19. I spent 19 days in a hospital. My father was in the hospital for 28 days. I am also a parent who lost a child, so I know the pain of losing a child. So I would never want to put anybody's child at risk. I am also very considerate to other people who may be concerned about elderly people that are around them. But that being said, at this point, first off, the state should decide if the mask mandate is in effect. They should not leave it up to the school boards, because what happens is that puts the school board in a bad spot. And that puts school board trustee against school board trustee. And there's been a lot of unfair comments made towards school board's trustee just for stating their point of view. And everybody wants to be safe. We don't all have the answers of how long this is going to go on or if this comes back. But I am in favor of parental choice. But as a parent, I could completely understand any parent's concern if they want their child to wear a mask, because my daughter sometimes still wears a mask. It depends on how she feels. And next part of your question, I didn't get about, you asking me about the vaccine mandates?
Yeah, COVID vaccine, HPV vaccine, state testing.
As far as state testing is into what?
State mandates
Testing?
around all these things.
Well, at this point, I don't think that there should be a vaccine mandate, because
Okay.
I am not going to tell a parent to vaccinate their child.
Okay, good. Ms. Bays.
So the key word to the question was mandate. And the answer really comes down to this. When there is a mandate as a Board of Education and as a school district, we must follow it. So that is really the key word, is mandate. As far as when it became a discussion, and if we can go back to July of last year, when it was a decision of when the state said we are giving it to the Board of Education to make a decision on whether or not masks are optional, I was in favor of making masks optional and it being a parent choice. It is now a parent choice, and that is per the state's ruling, and we as a school district are following it. I believe when mandates come into play, the school district must follow them. With regards to the vaccine mandates, I believe that there's a lot more to that than just the plain mandate. I do not believe that school districts should ever be put in the position to have to have children be vaccinated by the school district. If so, I am really ultimately for parent choice.
Thank you. Ms. Brooks.
Okay, so one by one. So the mask mandate, I was always in favor of following the science. When I felt that the science was ahead of us in terms of allowing a parent to make the decision of whether their child should wear a mask, knowing that knowing if a child was wearing a mask, they would be protected without having to have another child wearing a mask, then I was in favor of that, because I have always been in favor of making sure the children are healthy, because as I said in my opening statement, I want the kids to be in school, and I didn't want any kids caught in the quarantine web to be excluded from school. That has always been my gestalt. It always will be. And I think people had heard that from my various comments on the board. As far as vaccinations go, I hope to almighty heavens that the state health department mandates whatever they want to mandate, and that the school district doesn't have to get involved in that, because school districts should not be involved in mandating any vaccine. Do I believe the state should mandate the COVID vaccine? I do. I believe they should not. Do I believe the state should mandate HPV? I do not, but that's out of my hands. As far as state testing goes for grades 3 through 8, et cetera, that's a completely different issue. The board, the district is obligated to give those tests, but parents are not obligated to have their children take them. That is their choice.
Thank you. Next question. Depression, self-harm, and suicide are rising among adolescents. How should our school district be responding? How should our school district be proactive rather than reactive? And the first question, and it goes to Ms. Bays first.
It is actually a true statement that those numbers are rising. As a matter of fact, there was a suicide this past week of an 11-year-old in Patchogue-Mechford, not in our school district. And it is disturbing. I believe that the school district will be spending time discussing mental health and allowing for opportunities for our students to learn what the resources are for them. I know that our Safety and Substance Committee is planning on talking about this topic in May, because May is, I believe, Mental Health Awareness Month. So as a board member, I am prepared and to support the efforts of the school district in any way possible, which ultimately, as a board member, it does come down to financial support. So I am prepared. And we do have some mental health aspects in our budget this year with the ruler program, for instance, that the school district has adopted throughout the entire school district. So I believe it is a crucial part and needs to be a big discussion going forward.
Thank you. Ms. Brooks, you're next.
So a major component of whole child education is social and emotional well-being. And it's sad and unfortunate, but true, that students have been engaging in self-harm, more so during the pandemic and the isolation of the pandemic. But this has been going on since before the pandemic, and it's been one of my rallying cries since forever. I'm glad that the school board and the school district recognizes the need for social workers, guidance counselors, mental health initiatives. So in that way, I believe that the district is trying to be proactive rather than reactive. Teachers need to be aware. The teachers are going through training through Ruler. The students are going through training through Ruler. There's professional development. So I would like to think that the district is already responding and already being proactive. And hopefully we are ahead of any potential catastrophe.
Thank you. Mr. Tretola.
Well, you know, they say when you bury a parent, you bury your past. When you bury a child, you bury your future. I don't know how a teacher may be able to pick up on a child that may be veering off. I think there has to be communication between the parents and the school and the psychologist. I mean, there's so many variables, and how many times do we miss something? So to sit there and give an answer of psychologist or something else, or which way we should lean, or some of the decisions, it's such a touchy subject that you need a lot more communication with because you don't know what's going on in that child's home. You don't know what's going on in that child's head. You don't know what's going on during the day. So it's hard. You also can't expect the teachers to read these, with all the kids that they have, to read their minds. So there has to be some sort of communication between the parents, the teachers, the psychologist. There has to be something we can do. I'm just not exactly sure what the perfect answer is.
Okay, thank you. Next question. Port students have suffered in varying degrees from the social isolation necessitated by COVID. Beyond the resumption of school sports and clubs, what other activities would you try to promote within the schools to help bring students together socially? Ms. Brooks.
You know, I love the clubs and the sports, the before school clubs and sports at Weber and Schreiber. And I think I would actually like to see more participation in those. I know the question asked for something outside of those, but I really think there's something for everybody in those clubs. And I have always thought they were underutilized, and I would love to see the administrators reach out to more students and bring more students in to participate in that. Beyond that, I think especially at the elementary and middle school levels, it would be nice for administration to bring children together, maybe at lunchtime, because they're all over the place during the class time, and they travel a lot. The elementary school kids are together. But fostering more interaction among the students within the classroom, at lunchtime, during recess, looking out for the kids who don't have a buddy. There used to be buddy benches at the elementary schools. I don't know if they're still there, more awareness of the child who looks like they need a helping hand more than another child, I think would be a good start.
Thank you. Next, Mr. Tretola.
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question? Because my earphone had gone in and out.
Port students have suffered in varying degrees from the social isolation necessitated by COVID. Beyond the resumption of school sports and clubs, what other activities would you try to promote to help bring students together socially?
Social groups at recess. Something simple. When you start getting into long-winded answers of how you can do things, you try to keep things as simple as you possibly can. So my best bet is if you can get like guidance that can organize, reading, book clubs, anything that would work to get in between those timeframes.
You finished?
Yes,
Thank you.
I keep it very simple and direct.
Right.
Long-winded
Thank you.
doesn't solve the problems.
Thank you. Next question, Ms. Bays.
Wait.
Or Ms. Bays needs to answer that question. Yes.
Sure. So again, I'm on the board. I'm always the person that brings us back to, okay, what is the board's role? And so as far as the board's role is concerned in regards to that question, it would really be dependent on the asks of our principals, our administrators that would ultimately come to us through the superintendent. So if there was a need for more clubs, or if there was a need for more participation at different levels, for instance, we could start, more clubs at the elementary level. There are peer groups that are now in play at the high school. So all these kind of discussions, though, would ultimately be brought to us as board members as asks from our administrators that may mean monetary implications. So I am happy that we are back to doing activities in school. I'm happy to see that we are doing concerts, that we are doing plays, that we are doing graduations in person again. So I'm happy to that. But as a board member, I would really depend on the requirements or the needs, the asks of the administration.
Thank you. Are you aware that students at Schreiber regularly have several classes a day canceled since before COVID? As early as freshman year, students have many free periods with no substitute teachers, and they either hang around the building or leave campus, although it's technically prohibited, and go to local businesses. What is your plan to ensure the safety of these students? And what is your point of view on the hours and hours of lost instructional time? Mr. Tretola, you're going first.
Well, I think I just covered it, right? I mentioned how students are going to school and their classes are being canceled. So I don't understand why there is no substitute teacher. I mean, there may be things I don't know. I mean, the board has a policy. I think that the canceled classes, maybe if we could have a study hall. I mean, that's the only thing I could think of that would be able to keep kids busy. I don't have an excuse. I mean, things have changed so much since I went to school. I would go to school if the teacher was out, you had a substitute. We don't do that here. I don't know why. I ask other districts if their classes are canceled, what happens? They say there's a substitute. So I don't exactly understand what the protocol or what we're actually doing so far at Schreiber.
Thank you. Ms. Bays.
Okay, so just to give a little history, the Board of Education does have within their, as part of our budget process, we did include permanent subs at all our schools. And I believe that Schreiber has 2 permanent subs that are now part of the budget. We, as a Board of Education, have also heard these questions and concerns. And I can tell you that as a Board of Education, we did ask this year in a public board meeting to our superintendent to give us an attendance report and to look and see in ways in which we can improve any sort of canceled classes. And we are in the process of looking at all of that data, because here's one of the problems is at Schreiber, if you're not familiar, we have a block schedule, and the block schedule allows for free periods just based on that alone. So it could be in a typical day that you go in and you have periods 4-1 and 4-2 and 5 off. That could be your typical schedule of that day. Now, if you have a class canceled that day or a teacher who is absent on that day for any reason, and it doesn't mean that the teacher's not in the building, it could be another reason, then it appears as if the student has a lot of free time. I will say that as a parent who has had both their kids go through this, the kids wind up navigating the system and using their time constructively. It is hard in the beginning, but I do believe it is something that they do eventually navigate. But I will say again, as a Board of
Thank you.
Education, we are looking into this.
Thank you. Ms. Brooks.
Thank you. I don't want to repeat what Ms. Bays has said, but I will augment by saying that there are many reasons why a teacher might not be in class, some, especially during COVID, some might be sick. The issue is twofold. The issue is, why is there absenteeism? Is there a valid reason for the absenteeism? Are there abuses occurring by the staff in terms of absenteeism, which the district is looking into, as Ms. Bay said? And the other side is, why aren't there substitutes? And that's a fiscal issue. That was a decision. There was a decision made when teachers are absent for one day, there's no substitute teacher to try to save money. Absent for 2 days, then the substitute teacher kicks in. As a board, we are looking at whether that is still a prudent policy, even if it may be fiscally prudent, it's not educationally prudent. And so we are looking into how to balance those concerns going forward. But the board is aware. But as I said, there may be valid reasons, but even if there are, what do we do about having a substitute teacher in the classrooms? And that will come down to money.
Thank you. Next question. What are the biggest capital needs in the district, and how would you prioritize them? Ms. Bays.
So we are actually, this year on the ballot as well is a proposition number 2, which is the Capital Reserve Fund. And as part of our Board of Education responsibilities, we do facilities tours once a year. And this year, when we did our facility tours, we noticed that on top of some of the roof issues that are still ongoing and are being planned on being repaired and actually included in this year's budget, we also noticed that there were electrical needs. For instance, all of our electrical infrastructure needs upgraded. In order for us to do that, we as a board have made a decision to add a capital reserve fund onto our ballot to ask for the community's approval. That would ultimately be a savings account that we would be able to put money into so that we could eventually fix or start working on towards improving our electricity issues that would eventually help us bring ventilation issues as well to the board to actually resolve.
Thank you.
So 30 seconds.
Ms. Brooks.
Yes, to all of that. The roofs obviously are a major issue. They were a major issue when I joined the board 2 years ago, and the board started to put money into the transfer to capital line specifically to address the roofs, which were in various states of disrepair throughout the district. There are the univents throughout the buildings. Those are the vents that blow the hot air and the cold air, other ventilation issues, air conditioning issues, potential asbestos issues where we're constantly evaluating buildings for that. Eventually the tennis courts must be redone. I was going to mention that in my closing statement. I don't know how or what it should happen, but it's on the burgeoning priority list. So the district, we've got an amazing buildings and grounds facilities team that knows this district, knows where the issues are, and the board relies on their expertise to tell us exactly where the priorities are, and we figure out how to fund it. And that's what we've been doing for the past, now the third cycle that I've been on. Because I wouldn't know without the consultation with buildings and grounds, and they've been outstanding.
Thank you. Mr. Tretola.
Okay. In the business world, we say this: any problem that can be solved with money is not a problem, it's a cost. Now, if you go back and from what I've gone back to look, the most important thing we need to do is make sure that we pass a budget, because I believe in 05 and 06, the budget failed, and that started a lot of the issues that we had. So anytime a budget fails, it slows us down immensely. I don't get to view the grounds. I'm not in the meetings with them. I don't see what's being told by whoever's in charge. I don't have the availability to that. I am someone who shows up at the meetings. I'm able to watch some of the videos live stream. Some of them I can hear, some of them I can't. But I am trusting that the people who are on the board know what they need. I believe that they are on top of it when it comes to the roofs, because they've been talking about it for 3 years. I know from Elizabeth Weisberg all the needs that the buildings have had, because she was on top of it. So whatever they think that they need, all I do is I encourage the voters to pass the budget, to give whoever is on the board the opportunity to make sure we do whatever we can for the children and the facilities.
Thank you. And the next question, which came in a couple of times, what happens if the budget fails? Ms. Brooks, you're going first.
Oh boy, I have a treatise about this written up. So procedurally, if the budget fails, we get to revise the budget or keep it the same and put it up for a second time, for a second vote. If that second vote fails, then we go to what's called a contingency budget. When that happens, everything that we had wanted, then the budget has to go back to what the budget was the prior year. So everything we wanted to add on to that budget, whatever it was, technology, mental health services, more books, just everything we had wanted to add on and build upon goes bye-bye. And then what happens is we have to fulfill our contractual obligations and our debt obligations. And so our contractual obligations increase over the year. And that means eventually cutting programs to keep the budget where it was the year before. What programs have to be cut? First, the non-mandated programs. Full day kindergarten gets cut. After school sports and clubs will get cut. Librarians can be cut. Social workers can be cut. Certain creative arts things can be cut. And then when we can't cut anymore and we still have to get down to the budget, then we have to cut staffing, increase class size. It's a disaster that affects not only that year, but years to come, because now we're under the tax cap and rebuilding is very, very slow and very, very difficult.
Thank you. Mr. Tretola.
Okay, I think first off, there are a couple of myths that people don't understand when it comes to the budgets and the tax cap, and I know I didn't at first. So people right away, the reason why they would vote down the budget is obviously because everybody's concerned about their property tax cap. So let me address two myths. First off, everybody believes that there is a 2% cap. There is no 2% cap. There never has been a 2% cap. And even if there is a 2% cap, it's never really 2%. 2% is just a small number that they use in a much larger number to gather basically mathematical equation that they use to generate the tax levy. The school district controls the tax levy. Nassau County sets the tax rate. So what we need to do is we need to make sure that the budget that we do pass is fair, where we don't get a lot of resistance. I'm pretty confident that we have enough smart people on the board that know this already. Ms. Bays has been doing this a long time. She has a good handle on how to handle this. So I'm confident that with the inclusion program, with everything that we're trying to do, that we should not have a problem this year.
Thank you. Ms. Bays.
So if the budget fails, everything that is in this year's proposed budget is eliminated on the offset. And we have to go back to the number that we started with last year. Now, what Ms. Brooks talked about was whether or not we would put it up for a second vote. That would have to actually be a decision by the Board of Education if we would go put it up for a second vote, which would mean we would have to do a revised budget and put it up for a second vote. That there is a cost related to that. That would have to be discussed and agreed upon and voted upon by the Board of Education. If in fact, if it did happen and both times it failed potentially, everything that is not mandated will first be eliminated, because if you look at our budget, most of our budget is salaries, right? We're in the education business. Education business requires teachers and staff, and so what we would have to do is eliminate first all the non-mandated programs. That would be PEP, that would be full day kindergarten, that would be clubs, that would be sports. And afterwards, ultimately, as Ms. Brooks pointed out, it would probably wind up being staff members. And also just to let everybody know, staff members are usually in a seniority manner. So it would be the people that are the most recent hires would be going versus, people who have seniority. So this is something that we as a board try very hard to present budgets that are, we believe, fiscally responsible so that they do not
Thank you.
fail.
Thank you. Next question. Voters have asked about your views on a number of programs that Port Washington schools need. How would you prioritize? And there's 5 things coming up. 1, adding teams and clubs to help students have more school district sponsored social outlets. 2, providing SAT test prep to everyone. 3, increasing vocational training opportunities at Port. And 4, adding robust financial literacy education before age 16 or other. So it's teams and clubs, SAT test prep, vocational training, literacy education, or other. Mr. Tretola, you're first.
I think they're all great ideas. Here's the issue. Anytime a problem can be solved with money, it's not a problem, it's a cost. If we have the money, I think they're fine. But that's the point. They know what they're budgeting for. They have to set the priorities. And realistically, I would lean towards the superintendent to tell me what he feels he thinks is most important. Because that's why we brought him here. I brought him here because I want to hear him talk. I want to hear his ideas. So whatever the superintendent feels is important. If the board can accommodate on a financial end, then we should do it.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Bays?
In line with what Mr. Tretola said, the district had this year, and a little bit different, we did this year, we did district goals versus a board goals, because in fact, the goals of the board really need to be, like I said originally, a 30,000-foot view, and the district is the one who actually puts them together. Part of the district goals this year has been to increase access to education to all students with regard, again, tying into our portrait of a graduate and our vision mission. So this year, we do have in the budget more vocational training. We have this year dedicated a lot of our discussions in our board meetings as well about increasing our graduation rates and whether or not we can allow for students to have different types of pathways to get to graduation. With regards to teams and clubs and literacy education, all of these things, like as Mr. Tretola said, really depends on the asks for the Board of Education. Again, as our role, we have to listen to what the asks are from the superintendent, and it does come down to a monetary decision from the Board of Education.
Thank you. Ms. Brooks?
So I love the idea of adding teams and clubs. I'm not sure how many more we can squeeze in at Weber and Schreiber, but definitely at the elementary school level. A lot of those things were cut when the budget failed in 2006. And so those things were cut, as were language courses at the elementary school and so forth. So I'm always for extracurriculars. In fact, I think extracurriculars to a great extent are more important than the academics. That might be controversial, but I think that's where the kids really get to find their passions, where they don't have to do things that they're forced to do, but they find their inspiration, their passions, and they bond with other kids over those things. I love it. I'm grateful that the district has them in such great numbers. Not quite keen on SAT prep for all. I think that Khan Academy has something, and I believe the library does that. And with many, many, many colleges, except for MIT, now being test optional, I'm not so sure that would be money put to good use in the coming years. Vocational training, we've added it to the budget, and I'm thrilled to see it because not everybody wants to go to college or is meant to go to college. And I do believe financial literacy is very important no matter where you go in life. I believe there's a class such as that at Schreiber, but certainly kids much younger can learn how to balance a checkbook, understand how to make change, and just do basic things so that they can be prepared for life as a fiscally responsible adult.
Thank you. Next question. How is our district providing help to low-income families? Is it enough? Is it in the right areas? How do you know? Ms. Bays.
So we actually have a brand new E&L director this year who has who did a very extensive presentation at one of our board meetings, and I would encourage everyone to go and watch it. I believe it was the meeting in November. I think it was our November meeting where we had her present and all the ways in which she's trying to engage the community. We also, as part of our ARP funds, the superintendent put in a community liaison who is working with the community organizations across the district to try and get engagement. I do believe it is something that we do need to focus more on. I think that we, again, as I've always said, we represent the entire community. We represent everybody in the school district. We represent 5,300 students at a given time. And I think that they are an important part of our population. The other thing we are including in this year's Board of Education, that part of the budget that we did include this year are interpreters, that we believe that they should also be part of our board meetings, but also part of our programs, and more importantly for our teachers to have access, to our staff to have access, so that they can engage in that with that community.
Thank you. Mr. Tretola.
Okay, so I believe the ELL graduation rate was 67% in 2021. Is that accurate? I believe maybe Ms. Bays or Ms. Brooks would have that. As far as engaging, what I find that there are so many people out there that are trying to do everything they possibly can. So the question is how do we reach them? Do we reach them through their local parishes? Do we reach them through certain types of programs? How can we connect them? I was one of those children growing up in Queens. How did I fit in? How did I get into it? Well, I didn't have the support that we're offering now. And I think that there's a lot of people, not only just on the board that's coming up with ideas. I believe there are members of this, the parent council that are reaching out and doing amazing things to try to bridge the gap. I don't have all the answers of how things work. This is what, I'm here more to understand that there's going to be a bunch of ideas. We're going to try everything we can until we get it right. And we're going to do the best we can until we get it right. And I try to leave it as simple as that, because to sit there and come up with a plan and then not execute, that's just what we've been doing. So now it's about executing and figuring out and keep trying until we get it right.
Thank you. We're going to take two more questions. The penultimate is, this year, Port Washington has instituted integrated co-teaching classes in 3 grade levels, and it will expand the inclusion program in the coming school year. Do you support this program? Why or why not? As a board member, what will you do to ensure its long-term survival at Port Washington? And we'll begin with Ms. Brooks.
Thank you. Will I get a chance to answer the other question also?
Oh, I'm sorry. Did I skip you?
You did.
Oh, answer the how is our district helping low-income families? Is it enough in the right areas first, please? I apologize.
That's okay. And then I'll go on to my other one when my time's up here. Okay. So one of the issues facing the district is being able to identify those families. And the families have to want to be identified. We can't force families to file the necessary paperwork for free and reduced lunch or the things that would trigger the district to know which families are in need. And it stretches across race and ethnicity. It's not just our ELLs. We have plenty of Caucasian families in the district who also are low income and are struggling. So I caution trying to pigeonhole that. And as a board, we have also started being liaisons ourselves with various organizations. So for example, with Our Lady of Fatima, and with St. Peter's and other organizations, not just religious organizations, that might help alert parents in need to what the school district has to offer. So I do believe that would be a good partnership, but the school cannot force parents to come forward and say they need help. I do believe that help is there when the parents do come forward. And then so rolling into the next. So for inclusion, for the past 2 years, well, last year the board started with the inclusion program and committed money toward that from the federal grant money we got for relief aid. And this year we're including out of the general fund, we have committed to supporting the ICT program. And next year we are hoping we have the prospective commitment, whoever is in charge of next year's budget, to really flesh out the full program. So it's in place, and the machine, the train is rolling down the track, and we just need to make sure that it's funded each year, and that should ensure its longevity, in addition to making sure we have the personnel in place, the training in place, the professional development in place, to make sure it's a successful program, in addition to being a properly funded program.
Thank you. And thank you for your good humor. Mr. Tretola.
Okay, so I was probably one of the most aggressive for pushing for an ICT program. So the only thing I do realize, and this is what I've learned from presidents of other districts, is you cannot start a program or fund a program with one-time money. Anytime you have one-time money, the programs are not going to be sustainable. So we have, I believe, 955 students with IEPs, 115 are CPSEs, 840 are CSEs. Some of them we bus out of district. So we need these programs out of here. Now, also when it comes to understanding, the last thing we need to do is have an ICT program set up to fail. So in other words, I don't need Stephanie Allen 2 years from now going crazy looking for grants. That's not a program that's sustainable. If you look at Locust Valley has a 1211 and 811, an inclusion program, ICT, and they also have a life skills program. They're able to do it. So is every other district on Long Island. So it shouldn't be that hard for us to do it as well. It's not that difficult. We're not reinventing the wheel. Everybody's doing it.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Bays.
So I do support the ICT program, and I think as Ms. Brooks said, and as Mr. Tretola said, it does have budgetary implications, and the budgetary implications do need to be supported by the Board of Education. I have been very vocal on the Board of Education in sharing my beliefs with my fellow board members, and that this is a group of students that we cannot play with. We must be committed to them. And as Ms. Brooks said, the initial investment came from the ARP funds. We have now put it into our general fund and still using and by ARP funds for expanding the program next year. But as a Board of Education, we must be committed to the success of this program. I do know it is ours, again, going back to the Board of Education's role, it is our superintendent who has been very vocal about having this program. And this has been part of his vision from when he first arrived here in 2019. He did get sidetracked with COVID and wasn't able to put it in play. But I know that those are part of his long-term plans. And it is definitely a goal of the districts this year. And it has to be a goal that we sustain going forward. So my opinion, we need to sustain it budgetary wise and make it work for these students, because it is something that we've heard from the educators that is the best way to educate those students and educate students. And it's actually a service to all students, by the way, not just students with IEPs.
Thank you. We're now on to our last question. Is collaboration something you do well? Please give examples of how you have embraced viewpoints other than your own and brought them into a final collaborative solution. We're starting with you, Mr. Tretola.
Well, I haven't had the opportunity to work with anybody on the board yet, if that's what you're referring to, as far as
Have
collaborating.
you ever collaborated?
Oh, do I collaborate? I collaborate on a daily basis.
Can you give
have to. That's
examples
how I
of
make
how
up.
you have embraced viewpoints other than your own and brought them into the final collaborative solution?
Well, the first thing I realize is that I can learn from everybody. I don't have all the answers to anything. And I think when you're in my business, you're in a very humbling business, because you realize sometimes on a daily basis, you're nowhere near as smart as you possibly think you are. So when you speak to other people, you learn from just about anybody. Going to every board meeting, I have learned from every single board member. I may not understand or agree, but I've learned a lot from everything. I've learned from every one of my daughter's teachers, every time I've spoken to them. And the one thing I've learned from my daughter's teachers is I've learned how to be patient, give my daughter time. I learned that teachers who were really, really strong with my daughter hated that they were failing, maybe not able to get through to her. So I've learned so much about the entire educational process, from business, anything you could possibly do. I've tried to learn, and I'm open-minded. I learned from speaking to Miss Brooks. I had the opportunity to speak to her one time. I've learned so much from that one conversation. I had the opportunity to speak to Miss Bays, Miss Epstein, Miss Weisberg, so many of the board members of previous board members, and I learned everything because they're the ones with the knowledge. My job is to put myself in a position where I can actually execute.
Thank you. Ms. Bays.
Collaboration is very important, and collaboration is something that all board members need to really be good at. And I have to say that I believe that that is one of my, strong points as a board member. And I will talk about example-wise. As you know, we had a contentious Board of Education election last year, and we had turnover of our incumbents. And as president, I feel that I have worked real hard this year to try to be the balance between all parties and to try to get us to all collaborate with each other and work well together. And I believe we have all worked well together. As on a personal level this year, I was also committed to be growing as an individual and learning how to collaborate even better. And I went to training, board officer training. I asked for NISBA trainers to come and talk to our board as development sessions. We've worked to change some of the systems that we have in place with the Board of Education, also that we could collaborate better, not only amongst ourselves, but with the community. And so I believe collaboration is a very important aspect. And the most important part of it is that you balance the needs of all parties. And that is something that I believe I bring to the table.
Thank you. And Ms. Brooks.
Thank you. I'm not sure if I understand the word correctly, but the way I use it, I'll use ICT as an example. I didn't know what it was, and I wanted to be able to support the superintendent's recommendation, but I wanted to make sure I understood what it meant. And so I asked a lot of questions in an attempt to collaborate with the rest of the board and the superintendent. I also sought information outside of the board, within the community, to understand what is ICT, what is the benefit of it, who does it help, how does it work, so forth and so on, so that when I came to a vote, I could actually meaningfully say, I have collaborated, I understand, and yes, I want to move forward. Another example I can think of, in addition to welcoming the 3 new board members, when they were voted in, I actually went to the 2 I didn't know. Actually, they approached me. And when I sat down with them, I said to them, we are in this together. This is for the kids in the district. And we need to put the election behind us. And we need to respect each other and work well with each other, because this is not about you or me or egos. It's about the children in the district. And a final example is in my policy meetings that I run, I often hear parent comments as really good ideas that I have then said, wow, you know what, let's put that into our policies. And many of the policies that have been voted on in the past several months have ideas, have language in them that came from parent community members. And I guess that's another part of the collaborative effort.
Thank you. So this ends the Q&A part. We now move to closing statements. Ms. Bays, you went first for the opening and you were going first for the closing.
Thank you. Thank you, Judy, and thank you to all the League of Women Voters for once again hosting this forum and allowing us this opportunity to hear from our community. I hope I have demonstrated my knowledge of the school district and adequately explained the role of a Board of Education trustee. I also hope that this evening's forum has allowed our community the opportunity to witness my experience and objectivity. I bring to the Board of Education the ability to listen to all perspectives and to look for a balanced approach. While on the board, I've always reminded others that we not only represent all the students in our district, but that we represent all the taxpayers of ours as well. So I could hope to continue to build upon the work we have begun this past year, and I hope to receive your vote for another term on the Port Washington School Board. Thank you and good evening.
Thank you. Ms. Brooks.
Thank you again for the opportunity to participate in this forum. If re-elected, some of the improvements I hope to see to fruition include improving the college application process for first-generation students and underserved students, continued striving for equity and parity among the elementary schools and within the 4 Weber houses, continuing my support for our district's DEI efforts, beginning an earnest plan to repair and upgrade the playgrounds in an equitable manner, doing something, not sure what that would look like, about our tennis courts, and continuing to repair the various roofs and other infrastructure. I want to continue to bridge the gap between the schools and the community through even greater communication and transparency, and most important, to deliver an excellent education to all children so they are motivated to love learning and be proud of their accomplishments. If re-elected, I will continue to work toward forging the school-community partnership and ensuring that all children have the opportunity to develop such a love of learning. It will be an honor and privilege to continue serving this community. I will continue to roll up my sleeves and work hard for the students and for our taxpayers. My sense of personal excellence and accountability demands no less of me, and I thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Tretola.
Well, I thought this is the first time I've done this, so I'm excited. And I want to thank everybody for allowing me to participate. It's been extremely, extremely fun. All right. So, I mean, I'm in a position where I'm the underdog and I'm excited about it. I'm running against 2 people. I've learned so much from both of them. And here's the thing. I actually happen to like both of them. I've met both of them. They're both wonderful people. The only difference that is we just see things different ways. I see things sometimes as a parent because I'm in the trenches with a child with special needs. They look at things differently. Maybe their experience helps them. But at the end of the day, when you're a parent or a board member, the best thing you can do for a child is just believe in them. That's the number one thing you can do for a child. When you're a parent, when you're a board member, you can do everything to advocate for those children. But it's not that difficult at the end of the day. Both Miss Brooks and Miss Bays are 2 wonderful people. It's not like last year was. And I get what Miss Bays said that and Miss Brooks said that. This year's different. So what my point of view is, I bring somebody I'm someone who's just looking to make sure that we're able to execute. I know it's an unorthodox style because I speak my mind. I'm straightforward. Everybody likes somebody who tells the truth until they strike a nerve. So I'm just trying to be direct. I'm trying to be myself. And I thank both of them for their time. They've both been extremely helpful, extremely kind. Anytime I've reached out to either one of them, they've both gone out of the way to help me. And I'm grateful to both you, Miss Brooks, and Miss Bays.
Thank you. Thank you, candidates. The public and league appreciate your willingness to answer questions from voters thoughtfully and candidly and in civil discourse with your challengers. You've given clear, informed, and conscientious answers tonight, and you should all be proud of your participation in this forum. This is democracy at its best. So candidates, you are now muted. If you would like to wave goodbye before your cameras are turned off, and then please exit the meeting. Thank you very much. Now, before ending this forum, I want to thank you, the viewers. You have taken the time to learn more about the candidates you'll be voting for. Educated voters are the key to making this democracy work. A recording of this forum will be available on the League of Women Voters of Port Washington YouTube channel, either now or within 24 hours. If you want to know about future forums, please click the subscribe button on our YouTube channel, and there is a link to our League of Port Washington website. If you should like to join us, there is always plenty to do, and you can pay your dues online. This forum is now ended.